They may be watching you, but I'm watching them. This is Gabriel Custodiet. Just to let you know that the episode you're about to listen to is going to be great, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. If you're new to privacy or looking for a clear vision of next steps, start by going to escapethetechnocracy.com. All our cutting-edge analysis about escaping the surveillance grid occurs exclusively on our paid newsletter, Watchman's Torch, and in our world-class video tutorials. This podcast is just a preview. This is not some game for us. We live this stuff and we consult on it. Your support means we have no sponsors and can speak the unmitigated truth as we see it on this show. Check out the show notes and escapethetechnocracy.com. I'm very pleased today to be talking to Jeremy from Goldback, and he is the founder and CEO of Goldbacks. And so what Goldbacks are is, think of them like, they look like a banknote, but they have particles of gold that are on them. And Goldback, through their process, has been able to create these beautiful designed things that look like banknotes that you can essentially use as a money should you choose. So we'll get more into them. But Jeremy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me here. I'm doing great.
Yeah, so I just figured I'd pick your brain about a few things pertaining to Goldbacks. Obviously, I do think that if you can get your hands on one of these, you should definitely, first of all, pause the episode, go look at what these things look like so you know what we're talking about. And I would definitely encourage people to just go out to your local coin shop probably and pick up a few of these to see what they look like. You can get them for only a few dollars. That's how small the denominations they go to. And you can buy these Goldbacks from basically 1/2000th of an ounce, which is maybe like $3.50 spot price, to 1/10 of an ounce, which would be like $700. So there's quite a range, and it's a fantastic idea.
So I'll do you one a little better. We actually have a promotion going right now that if you go to freegoldback.com, we'll send you a Goldback for free.
There we go. Of course, on this show, we advocate everybody only cash purchases for things like gold, but we'll get into that in a moment. But I want to skip, Jeremy, some of the topics surrounding, sound money and the historic and inherent value of gold, all these things. I hope, and I think my audience already knows a lot of these things and believes in them. So I thought we could just kind of get to some of the practicalities, because I would really like to make this work, and I'm sure a lot of my audience would as well, and maybe just learn a little bit about it as well. Could you first just walk us through, like, how are these things made? How do you make these things? Because that's a really cool story in and of itself.
Okay, so they're made through a process called vacuum deposition, and it's the same technology that puts gold in, say, Oakley sunglasses, or in a space helmet, or in microchips. So there's a deep space vacuum chamber where there is a 50-pound target of gold that gets hit with a plasma, like a plasma ray, and it creates a field of gold that polymer runs through, and we can measure down to very precise amounts how much gold is on a polymer. And then it's sealed in, so it's like a gold plastic sandwich, basically.
Yeah, fascinating process. I believe it took you guys a while to perfect that. Is this patented, or what's the deal with that?
It took decades to kind of fully flesh out this technology. Vacuum deposition's been around since the 80s. Bills have been getting created since maybe 2011, 2012. So it's been a hot minute. There are a number of patents involved. There's also quite a few trade secrets, and we're constantly running out with new anti-counterfeiting features. Our goal is to have the most counterfeit-proof physical gold product in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's actually on my list of things next. So anti-counterfeiting, obviously one wants that for money. And if people look at these things, and I hope people are by now just looking at an image of these Goldbacks and then be saying, wow, that's amazing. That looks awesome. I want one of these. I want several of these. And maybe a little bit down the line of this, they're thinking, well, how easy would it be for somebody to just kind of print up a piece of gold paper that could pass as a Goldback? So tell me about the anti-counterfeiting that you guys get up to.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, the newest one is you can shine a black light on the back and see hidden images. There's a serial number that you can read through. The back is a negative image of the front, which, has never been counterfeited. We've got, 6 or 7 different anti-counterfeiting features on the front, including non-repeating patterns that are, part of software that's more kind of available to central banks. And then there's, a number of other things that we're coming out with in future years that'll increasingly raise the bar for difficulty in making a fake Goldback.
My understanding is that you guys have kind of skyrocketed in the last few years. Could you tell us about, how many of these things are estimated to be in circulation? Like, what's the production level? How successful have Goldbacks been recently?
Well, Goldbacks came out in 2019, and during COVID, we sold out because everybody wanted them. And Goldbacks were regularly sold out for about 3 years. And we had to put a lot of money into expanding capacity. Today, there is about $250 million worth of Goldbacks out in circulation. And by the numbers, just the sheer mintage numbers, there is no other gold product in the United States. There's no other gold bullion product that is as mass produced as the Goldback.
Each one of these Goldbacks, there's different series, and they have different states on them, whether that's Florida or Wyoming or etc. What exactly is going on there? Why do particular ones have states on them? And maybe this will get us to the question of laws governing making money and whether Goldbacks are money and all that sort of thing. Maybe you could just get us started with that topic.
So at the federal level, it's a felony to produce anything that's made out of metal that is to be used as money, unless it's otherwise authorized by law. And the way we go around that is we tap into a law that has been passed by all 50 states called the Uniform Commercial Code. It is the same law that allows for the creation of, say, Walmart gift cards. So every Goldback is a negotiable instrument at the state level. We can't do a federal project. So we started in one state. We started in Utah. We expanded out to 5 states. And then Florida is kind of our first Goldback 2.0 state, where we've gone for smaller denominations, a bigger range, better artwork, and more security features than what we originally did.
Whatever somebody wants to accept in exchange for something else. I mean, in my view, that's perfectly fine. And obviously you can do that. So how does that restrict us? The Florida Goldbacks, how does that restrict?
I don't see how it restricts you at all. In fact, Florida Goldbacks, they're sold all over the world. They're sold all over Latin America. We've got an advertised business network in Florida where we have businesses that raise their hand and say, hey, I would take these all day. Please advertise my business as being a business that takes payment in gold. But we're finding that something wild, like half of small business owners will take Goldbacks as payment for goods and services.
It's a way to have physical gold in your possession, obviously. And unlike something maybe like a U.S. Gold Eagle or what have you, or one of these, coins of the realm, so to speak, these would not be confiscatable under similar laws pertaining to that, because it's not like a mint printed money. Am I getting that right?
It's an interesting angle. That one's probably debatable. Governments will try to do what governments try to do, in terms of neatly terminating their own mints and saying, we want to go after all the products that are out there. I don't know how likely or possible that is. I know we had that happen in the 30s, back when gold was circulating as gold coinage. What I would say is that there's a lot of concern about central bank digital currencies and this erosion of privacy that we're having in the West. My wife and I, for a long time, we used cash because I didn't want everybody in my business. I didn't want Visa selling my information on where I was putting money. I think the modern landscape, where there's very little privacy and you have to fight aggressively for it, is dystopian. But when people boycott potential or prospective central bank digital currencies or big payment processors with cash, you're simply using another central bank product. The Federal Reserve note is a central bank product. So you can boycott the central bank digital currency all you want, but you're still one of their customers. And the Goldback is really just about having an option to be out of the matrix, reconnecting with your community, restoring your privacy, and getting out of a system that inflates your wealth away.
The Goldbacks obviously have functional, through sheer functionality, a lot of the properties of cash, but again, it's outside of the fiat scam. Now, this does, though, Jeremy, get us to another question, which is, where do people get these Goldbacks? And maybe, to start, is there a way of buying directly from you guys, directly from the source? And do you have a physical shop? And then maybe you branch out from there, the other places that people tend to buy these Goldbacks.
We're a wholesaler, and I want to say that we have about 600 authorized dealers for Goldbacks where you can walk into a shop and you can pay cash and you can walk out with Goldbacks. And another distributor that's really up and coming right now is there's an ATM service that dispenses Goldbacks where you can put in cash and dispense out Goldbacks in a private way.
Wow. Tell me more about this ATM. Are these up and functional?
Yes, they're up and functional. It's still early. I want to, if you go to goldatm.com, you can find a list of where they're at. But again, you can get Goldbacks at, a whole heck of a lot of different coin dealers. They often have them in stock. If your goal is privacy, you can do a like exchange. You can trade gold or silver for Goldbacks. You can pay cash for Goldbacks. It's a product built with privacy in mind.
Of course, you go to the website, you'll have all the options to find shops near you, and probably it's at your local coin shop as well. And the reason I brought up the buying online, Jeremy, is because that's what I preach to my audience, is that if you're getting into something like gold, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well, and it's certainly worth not having a trail to that particular purchase, and that would include any credit card purchase, any online purchase. Obviously, if you purchase it online, probably get some better deals. You'll be able to buy it more in bulk. It'll be in stock. You don't have to leave your house. There's all the benefits of that as well, of course. So I leave it to the listener to determine how they want to acquire their Goldbacks. Maybe just talk a little bit more, Jeremy, about how widespread is the adoption. Maybe people are hearing this for the first time, but maybe they're going to start noticing maybe shops that accept Goldbacks, or maybe they see people carrying these. How can people kind of start recognizing where these are accepted and maybe start using them themselves if they acquire them?
No, for sure. If you want to carry Goldbacks with you, my recommendation would be to get a Goldback wallet or just any kind of wallet that won't bend them. If you have Goldbacks on you, you would be amazed at how many opportunities there are to spend gold. Small gifts, tips at restaurants. You'd be surprised at how often you do haggle with people at farmers markets and flea markets and garage sales, and the neighbor kid that came to help you, pack up the car, whatever.
And it's a conversation starter.
Well, it's not just a conversation starter. People get really excited because you're giving them something that has a very high value perception. They see the gold on there, and you can educate your community, everybody you interact with, about what the true nature of money should be. Now, in terms of how big this is, we have a calculator on goldback.com. We don't track you or anything. It's just, if you use it, let's say I owe somebody $5,000, they're installing a furnace in my house. This is a real example. They took payment in Goldback. I went to the calculator. I typed in, $5,000, and it told me how many Goldbacks I owed the guy. I paid him that many Goldbacks, and we were done. So we do collect that as metadata. In 2023, we had 60,000 hits on that calculator. Now, for me, I very rarely use the calculator. I can almost always just do the math in my head.
Right.
If a Goldback is worth about $7 today, you don't have to be a genius to know how much, $21 is worth. It's just 3 Goldbacks, right? Bigger transactions usually require the calculator. In 2024, we saw an increase of traffic from about 60,000 uses on the calculator to closer to 120,000 uses on the calculator. So we know people are transacting with these. Yeah, I hear stories. Again, people are private about it. They don't advertise from the rooftop what they do in their private transactions.
Yeah.
But I do get to hear about it through the grapevine. I learned about a community in Colorado where they said, there's this huge push for digital everything. And, if they had their way, we'd all be doing all of our transactions with Visa. But the problem with that is you do 10 transactions within your own community, and 30 to 40% of the money went to Visa. If it's just 10 transactions just going around the same people in the same community.
Right.
Because they're charging a 2, 3, 4% fee every single time. And that adds up. Or, you could all just use cash, but, cash, the dollar has lost 10% of its value this year. So you have to get more cash into your community to facilitate the same transactions, which is a way to systemically get poorer. You have to work harder to get the same amount. It's the bucket with a hole on the bottom. So this community, they use Goldback, and since the Goldback came out in 2019, the value of a Goldback against the dollar has tripled. Well, it's actually done a little better than that. They came out at $2, and today they're worth closer to $7. And it did not take that long.
Right. Yeah. And the price of gold has gone up tremendously in the last bit of time. So you're absolutely right that this is a great alternative to fiat currencies. This is a physical thing, which is what I'm looking for. So I'm all on board for, hey, let's start using Goldbacks, everybody. Let's definitely see how we can make this work. And you can go on the Goldbacks website, see shops in your area that accept it, and of course, you can be the one to start that. There are a lot of people listening to this, Jeremy. I know we do a lot of Bitcoin stuff, and one of the things about the Bitcoiners is they talk a lot about the theory of money. And one of the things that Satoshi says is that as long as enough people believe in this, it can work. And that's what I hope for Goldbacks is that you just have to make it work. And if you accept it and you convince somebody else to accept it, then there you go. You have a functional tool to exchange value.
Oh yeah, I was having this conversation actually with Peter Schiff, and he's beating me up on the premium on a Goldback, because you imagine you split an ounce of gold into 2,000 pieces, and we're not doing that for the raw melt value of gold. I mean, we can't. I mean, it used to cost 300-400% over the melt price to go that small with gold. And what we've done is we've managed to create an average premium on the Goldback that's a uniform value that's roughly double the melt value. So, the ones and the halves, technically they lose me money. They're subsidized by the bigger denominations. But you can take a 50 and trade it for 50 of the one denomination. And you can take 50 of the one denomination and trade it for a 50. And you can't do that with coins. You can't trade a 1 ounce gold coin for 10 tenth ounces and back and forth.
Right.
So I was explaining this to Peter Schiff, and he says, that's a much better system than the dollar, because what you've done is you've created a currency with a floor. The absolute worst case scenario you have with Goldback is that all of them get scrapped, they all get melted down, and you get half your value guaranteed. What's the floor on the dollar?
Infinite, potentially.
Okay, what's the floor on Bitcoin? And I own Bitcoin, by the way. I'm not anti-Bitcoin.
What's the floor of Bitcoin? Zero.
What's the floor of any cryptocurrency? Right. It's just, and Bitcoin's huge. It's a multi-trillion-dollar thing. I mean, dollars are a multi-trillion-dollar thing, but they do well because there's a brand recognition and there's a network effect. There's high confidence in the market. The market dictates the price of anything. We have a healthy market. There's about $250 million worth of Goldbacks out today. But I feel like this thing is really in its infancy still. It's very new.
I did want to ask you on the premium question though, because I think even for the gold bugs, this is kind of what they come down to. And I talked to a bunch of people at owners of gold coin shops and all the rest and Goldbacks, and some of them were a little bit dismissive. And it basically comes down to the premium, right? Because if let's say the spot price, whatever that exactly means, is whatever 350 of a Goldback, and it's being sold for $5 or twice that amount, then that's obviously very far off of the gold price. So how do we make you kind of had an answer there, but how do we make Goldbacks work with this premium?
Do you own a car?
Yes.
Okay. What's the melt value of your car?
A lot less than the actual final use case of it.
Okay. Why would you accept that?
Because I don't know how to do it myself, and it's a very useful thing at the end.
I mean, aren't they ripping you off, though, if they're selling you a car for a higher value than the melt materials?
No, because I don't know how to assemble a car myself.
Okay. So if you could assemble a car yourself, you could do it for the scrap material value of the car?
Well, then there's all my time involved and all the rest, all that intellectual labor of putting it together.
Right. I mean, that's just an economic law. If you take a material and you add craftsmanship to it and labor and intellectual property, you add value to it. And it's true for everything. I mean, your car keys, the keys to your house. I mean, what'd you pay for a key? It's like $2, $3 at the hardware store, something like that.
Yeah, it's getting up there in price, but
What's
yeah,
the price of steel per ton? Okay, so why are you paying 1,000% premium over steel for your key?
because of all the labor involved in creating that key.
Okay, well, it's not really any different with Goldback. If I'm taking an ounce of gold and I'm splitting it into 2,000 pieces that have never been counterfeited, that are individually serialized, and I'm guaranteeing that you can swap across denominations and that we're going to maintain this system and build it out and add a network over time. All of those things cost money. I think the pushback that I get is from people that look at gold as a scrap metal product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a scrap metal guy, yeah, I mean, the Goldback doesn't make sense to you. You're not a sound money privacy guy. You don't understand the utility of why somebody would want to split gold that small and spend it and use it. You're really just looking at scrap value. And I think there's a lot of people in the precious metal space that, they pay lip service to sound money and privacy and, all these things. But at the end of the day, they're like a buy gold, sell gold, scrap metal mindset. Um, they buy old jewelry for scrap, they melt it down, they sell it for spot, they charge spreads, and that's the business. So when something like the Goldback comes along, I'd say the Goldback has more in common with Bitcoin than it does with gold coins.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. Just a little pushback, and this will get us into another question though for you to answer. So, okay, so the answer, anti-counterfeiting is part of the value we're saying, and the network effect and the craftsmanship and all the rest. Now,
And the fungibility, right? It costs money to
yeah,
go to 1,000 or 1/2,000th of an ounce. And if you look at comps, by the way, if you look at other 1/2,000th of an ounce gold products, they're not cheaper than the Goldback. Like you're paying a 200-300% premium over the melt value
mhm,
when you go that small.
right.
So nobody has ever done this as cheap as us.
Yeah.
So it's not like we've come up with this absurd premium, and we're charging name brand pricing, to get it. It's nobody can go this cheap, this small.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly one of the many innovations of this is that you have these incredibly small denominations, and I'm just poking out really.
No, and you should. I'm not offended. I'm just,
No, no,
I'm just.
I could tell you get this question a lot, but okay, so just to finish up my little thought there. So okay,
Go ahead.
we understand that maybe half of the value according to the numbers we crunched is all the things we mentioned, the call them intangible things. Why then have the other half of the value? What is gold? Why have gold as the other half of the value? Why not just invent piece of paper that has all the anti-counterfeiting and the network effect and all this kind of stuff? Would that not also just be suitable?
It would work. No, it would absolutely work. In fact, the reason that I initially got interested in the company that makes the Goldback is because they were developing a note that was made out of like titanium or something, and it was a cold storage wallet
Hmm.
where on the outside you had a wallet ID and on the inside you had a code. And the only way to get to the password for the wallet was to destroy the note. And it was meant to be a physical form for cryptocurrency. And as money, that would totally work too. The fact that we use gold, I think the gold's really pretty. I think that it taps into a bigger market. Gold is a multi-trillion-dollar market. So there's some security in that, and that I'm not Flintstoning the entire currency from scratch, although we could have,
Mhm.
and just because that's actually a really good question. Nobody's asked me that before. So, I'm talking to someone that's been in this space, for a while, but that's why we do gold. We can tap into a bigger market. It allows us to get more buy-in, I guess, from the public. It pulls in a lot of people that are skeptical of cryptocurrencies or fiat currencies, and they don't want a new fiat currency or a new system. They want it to have kind of a tie-in with something that's a little bit more known.
Right.
So I think those are some of the advantages of having gold be that other half.
Yeah, and kind of what I've come down to, Jeremy, in recent years of all these questions, what is money, what's the value, all the rest is, hey, look, if we have something and we find value in it, let's just go with that. Let's just go with that, and we can turn that into what we want of that thing. So I'm perfectly fine with that sort of thing. Okay, then moving on here. Interesting that the company is Goldbacks. You're not mentioning silver at all, and basically because in the past, my understanding is silver was the smaller denominations when you can't just use a gold ounce. That's too much. So you had the silver as a smaller denomination, but Goldback essentially replaces the need for silver in that kind of model. Would you agree with that?
Today, the last I looked, the silver that is mined out of the ground, 80% of silver mined today is used in industry. And 99% of copper that's mined today is used in industry. And for gold, 90% of gold is used in jewelry and investment. So, there's not some lever in the Federal Reserve that I think anyone could pull and say, hey, instead of using all of our silver in industry and laptops and computers and solar panels and, you name it, instead of doing all those things with silver, why don't we just put it back into coinage? Because at its best, the old monetary system was a tri-metal system that was kind of pre-computer age. And we used an enormous amount of our copper and our silver as money because gold was not small enough. It could not be small enough. And, with the Goldback, we don't have to use copper. We don't have to use silver. We can just use gold and we can make gold small enough. So that's, that's solving a 2,500-year-old problem. Now, I do get some objections, and I'm a fan of silver. By the way, I think it is an undervalued industrial metal, and I own it because I think it is. There's some price suppression there, not because I think it's going to be a monetary instrument again. I don't think those ideas are necessarily mutually exclusive. But what I will tell you is that one of the big objections we get to the Goldback is from some folks in the silver community. It's like they're mad because they feel like Goldback took their spot. Like, oh, they're not solving a real problem, and silver already solved this problem. And, just use junk silver. Just use junk silver. And, before Goldback ever existed, my background, I was a Ron Paul delegate. That was kind of my introduction into this whole rabbit hole. It was just listening to Ron Paul in my younger 20s and running through the caucus system to become a delegate to vote for him in 2011. I'm going to guess you might be familiar with Ron Paul. He's still kicking, by the way, which is wild to me.
He sure is.
But I would barter with junk silver after listening to Ron Paul. I'd go to the farmer's market. I'd barter with junk silver, and I'd have maybe a 20-25% take up rate. I'd be there explaining, oh, this silver's special, and see the date on it, and that means this is made out of silver, and silver is worth this, and you should give me your salsa for this, silver quarter, right? And if I convinced them, they'd take the silver quarter, and away I went. I felt I think they never changed the designs on the dimes ever since they discontinued minting them as silver, and I think they did that on purpose just to make it harder to barter with junk silver, because you're trying to convince them not only is it silver, but you won't get it mixed up with the rest of your change. But now there's some real problems with junk silver. One of them is just our markets are getting flooded with fake junk silver. If you go to Alibaba, if you go to Temu, you can buy replica junk silver that is very convincing looking. And I wouldn't take junk silver from a stranger just because, I might, if I'm wrong, I'm out. But, the other thing about junk silver, I get these objections on the Goldback premium, and people point to junk silver as a better alternative. People forget that when junk silver was produced, that for much of the time junk silver was produced, it was at triple or quadruple the value of its melt value. It would take 5 cents worth of silver to make a quarter. And that the difference was seigniorage, and the market accepted it because it was better to have it as a quarter, and it's better to have a $20 bill with $4 worth of gold in it if the entire market accepts it as a 20. And by the way, that was the same sentiment behind fractional banking. That was the same sentiment behind the gold standard that required a 40% reserve. It was never 1-to-1. You'd have credit, you'd have notes that would circulate, and some of the things would be coins and some of the things would be note. The Goldback has more gold in it in proportion to its total value than any system the government ever ran. And that's just an example of the private sector doing a better job.
So the banknote style, right? I don't want to call these banknotes, but the style of the banknote, there's an obvious convenience to that. I think anybody can see that. Now, I believe there's a caveat that you don't necessarily want to be folding these into a traditional wallet. Is that right? Is that going to wear these things a little bit?
If you put them in a money clip or a bifold in your, I'd say that's probably the weakest part of the Goldback is they're tough. They're tougher than dollars. It's 2 layers of plastic with the gold in the middle. But if you bend them in half and you go origami on these things, I mean, yeah, and they're not going to look as nice and they're not going to circulate as long. And, so far what I've been doing is, anything that's super worn out in circulation, I just take it out. I throw it to the bottom of a vault, and at some point I'll just recast all of these. And that's also part of the charge. We have to charge enough money to recast these eventually. And it's not as profitable as anybody thinks. I think people think that, I've got a product that costs me $350 and I'm charging $7, and I'm Scrooge McDuck swimming around in a gold vault laughing to the bank as people pay double for gold. And, it takes 50 different people to manufacture. I got 50 people that work at the manufacturing plant for these.
Right.
I've got 30 employees. There's marketing costs, there's distribution costs. I have to make sure that people distributing these things are paid. There's royalties. At the end of the day, I make less money than your dentist does doing this with Goldback. And some months we don't even break even. So we try to make it as cheap as we can. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the lower denomination notes are produced at a loss. And that's, imagine you bought a car at a car dealership and they produced it at a loss and sold it to you at a loss. You're probably getting a good deal. You know what I mean?
I'm sold on Goldbacks. I think everybody should go give them a try, start using them. Let's make this work. And I'm just talking about some of the practicalities now. So it's probably best. You probably want to track down one of these Goldback wallets or something similar so you can keep them straight. Also, the larger the denomination, these things can get a little bit large, maybe too large even for a wallet to fit. So you probably just want to have your own separate wallet for these Goldbacks. Fill it up, go around and try to convince people and support people who accept Goldbacks. Now, on that topic, Jeremy, you've done this a lot, I'm sure. What's the best way to approach someone with maximal success to have them accept a Goldback? Any tips for that?
That's a really great question. One little anecdote before I answer that. There is a Goldback app. We don't track you. And if you download the Goldback app, you can see businesses near you that advertise themselves as preferring to take payment in Goldbacks.
Right. You can also access that on the website, right? I was playing.
Yeah, you can access that on the website. And there's thousands of businesses and it grows all the time. And if you want to feature your business, please, we'll advertise you for free. It costs nothing. But almost, I'd say 9 out of 10 or even maybe 19 out of 20 of my transactions aren't at these advertised businesses. They're just with individuals, business owners, garage sales, flea markets, the waitress at the restaurant. What I often do is I will take a Goldback out of my wallet and I'll just show people first, say, hey, check this out. And they'll look at it. And the Goldback itself does the heavy lifting. If you haven't seen one in person, you've never seen a Goldback. And nothing on the internet will do it justice. You're looking at 24 karat gold and you're looking at a lot of it. A single Goldback has 9 times the surface area of a 1 ounce gold coin. So emotionally, whatever that does to your dopamine receptors, the reason why the Goldback, I think, does so well, it's not because people understand what the central banks are doing and they're mad, it's not necessarily coming from this place of deep knowledge. It's a little bit more kind of a primal reaction to the Goldback being shiny and beautiful and them just wanting it. So I'll show them a Goldback. I'll pull it out and say, hey, check this out. I got this piece of gold. And, then I might ask them, hey, how would you feel about doing a trade? Oh, Oh, okay. And and you tell them it's worth $7, and it's like they can't even believe that a Goldback would be worth $7. It looks like it's worth 20 or 30 or $40. So, I have a lot of success with that. I'll go to restaurants and I'll say, hey, you did a really great service for me today. I mean, would you like me to tip you with cash, or, can I leave you a couple pieces of 24 karat gold? 9 out of 10 times they'll go for the gold. Sometimes they'll ask to see it first, and most of the time they'll go for the gold. Every once in a while you'll get a skeptic or someone that's they got to pay their rent that week, and I mean, they're maybe they don't trust you or something. But most of the time people go for the gold.
If you can get to the person who's in charge of the shop who will accept the money, like not just a low level employee, if you can, like, hey, Mr. Manager or owner, obviously talk to that person whenever you can. That will increase your likelihood as well.
Yeah, no, the secretary will laugh you out of the place. I mean, because they're not a decision maker. They're a gatekeeper, right? Their job is to say no, and I'll tell you, it's very satisfying. Because I learned this the hard way. Getting the first businesses signing up as advertising themselves. These gatekeepers have told me no, and you get the business owner excited about it. And all those same gatekeepers are learning how to use the app and learning how to use the calculator and, learning how to find the price, and they'll take them, and, people love them.
No, just back to some practicalities here. Besides your local coin shop, let's say, are there any other retail shops? I guess people can check your website where they can buy in person. Like, what are there any examples that come to mind? Are there any kind of big chains or anything like this that you can buy these in person?
We've used the kind of existing precious metals industry as a distribution channel for Goldback. Maybe someday we'll sell them out of grocery stores. Maybe someday, we'll have a network of pawn shops or something. I think it could also just be these ATMs that are coming out just to make the Goldback more accessible to more people. I think our biggest challenge with the Goldback so far has been distribution. Just, reducing the friction from, oh, I'm interested in Goldback to actually getting a Goldback. And, I say we got 600 coin dealers that sell them. There's another 2,000 coin dealers that don't. They don't have regular Goldbacks. They might buy them from customers sometime. A lot of the pushback that I get on Goldback, it's not from the banking class. I thought, starting this, that the bankers would be out to get me, and I'd have all this pressure from the bureaucrats and everything else. And the people that push back on Goldback the hardest are kind of these old guard, scrap metalist mentality coin dealers that have been selling the same products. Yeah, they've been selling the same products for 50 years. And the idea of something like the Goldback is offensive to them. And never mind, they sell copper rounds with a 1,600% premium. Never mind, they sell other fractional gold with higher premiums. I think it's really just because it's new and they grab onto the premium as an objection. But I think the gold space or the gold industry attracts people that aren't necessarily early adopters. They're not necessarily jumping on the latest wave of the newest technology. I think it attracts a lot of traditionalists, and the Goldback it's something new and something old, and they have a hard time with the something new part of a Goldback.
Sure. Are you aware of any shops that will accept cryptocurrencies for Goldbacks?
You might find individuals that do that. I don't know if there's any coin shops that do that, but if they did, they'd be local,
And not just physical, but online as well, that you're aware of.
Online, I believe Money Metals does.
Okay.
And I think Defy the Grid does too. I think they take crypto payments.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And just another question or two for you here, Jeremy. This has been very informative. International. What have you noticed? Obviously, these are an American creation, but have you noticed any either similar thing happening internationally or Goldbacks? What's the use case for these internationally? And plenty of people not American listening, what can they expect? And would Goldbacks be of use in their particular region, do you think?
The further you are from the United States, the higher the value of the Goldback becomes. And, I've heard stories of people spending Goldbacks in Israel and buying pizza in Israel. I've heard stories of people buying Goldbacks in Pakistan and paying $100 a piece for a Goldback.
Some of these
You leave
places,
America.
they love gold traditionally a lot more than
Oh,
Americans.
absolutely. Well, you leave America, and people in Venezuela and just any country you can think of, most people deal with inflation at a level Americans don't see. And when you show them an inflation-proof money system like the Goldback, that's tangible. Again, I don't want to knock on crypto. I own quite a bit of crypto. I've done a lot of crypto. I'm not a crypto hater guy, but the analog nature of a Goldback is really nice. There's no download this app, download this website. What's your 40-digit, wallet ID? You can hand a Goldback to someone and the whole thing is over, which makes it really great as a cash alternative. So they do well overseas. They are making their way overseas. It used to be that maybe 2% of our web traffic was outside the United States, and now it's maybe 15% is outside the United States. So it's definitely growing. I think Florida is going to accelerate that. People outside the country, Latin America, South America, most of them have never heard of New Hampshire or Wyoming, but they have heard of Florida. So having a Florida Goldback, I think adds a lot. And who knows? We're looking at international projects that could come to fruition over the next few years, and we might have a global brand.
Right.
In 5-10 years.
And retailers shipping outside of the US, is that a common thing, or are most people having to have these basically imported?
There are distributors that ship worldwide. I'll again give Defy the Grid as an example. They ship globally to most countries, and they take crypto as payment. So they're great for that.
And have you had any experience transporting Goldbacks across international borders? Has that ever been an issue in any way?
Never. I've never had anybody ever come back and report that there was an issue moving Goldbacks internationally. Aside from one guy, he said that he got detained in London for like an extra half hour, and they're trying to figure out what the Goldbacks were. Goldback is so new that a lot of regulators don't really know what they are yet. A lot of foreign governments, they've never seen them. I think that most people just treat it like a gold bullion product. And, there's a lot of protections for gold bullion. Most gold bullion trades without tariffs in most places. So it hasn't really been a huge issue yet.
This has been Jeremy of Goldbacks. I would encourage everybody to go to your local, just start easy, go to your local coin shop, gold shop, and see if they have some Goldbacks. I mean, you can talk to the old fogey at the gold shop and have him try to talk you out of it, or get his opinion on it. Obviously, that's useful. Pick up some of these, start using them, check them out. You can start for as little as a few dollars. Start to be aware of, what is the gold spot price and what is the Goldback price and all these sorts of things. Pull up the website when you go to the shop so you're getting a fair price and all the rest, and just get started. That would be my encouragement. I think everybody listening should kind of get started in this. I think it's one of the more exciting financial freedom and sovereignty tools that is being developed at this point in time. And so I would absolutely encourage people to start getting in on this. Your final thoughts, Jeremy?
I really appreciate that support. And by the way, this is not a sponsored video, so I that really means a lot, actually. And I see the Goldback as a movement. It's a grassroots movement. People are getting involved. We're going to be doing in-person meetup groups all over the country within about a year. You're going to see more and more. I mean, we went from 100 distributors last year selling Goldbacks to 600 this year. So there's some real momentum behind it right now. And, getting involved and helping it across the finish line is, I really think that the technology behind the Goldback can get us to a better and freer world. So I appreciate the support.
Hey, thanks for listening. I could really use your help real quick. If you could share this episode with someone, engage with me, leave a review anywhere. This helps me to break the technocratic shadow banning that is happening with my brand. And of course, if you really want to escape the technocracy, go to escapethetechnocracy.com. Privacy tutorial series, books, newsletters, consulting, and of course, you can leave a donation. Thank you very much.